living is God. Sing it out, hallelujah.
Wow. Oh, fantastic. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. Beautiful. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. There was a man walking along in the woods and came to a cliff and slipped and fell off the edge of the cliff. And as he was going down, he was able to grab hold of one of the branches as he fell. And he's hanging there, and he's praying. He's saying, "Oh my gosh, God, please help me, please help me." And he hears this voice from above. It says, "Let go." Is there anybody else up there? I think we laugh at that, but there's a part of us that knows that we've done that, haven't we? Something like that, perhaps. We've been in difficult, challenging situations. We've been in circumstances, and we get an answer. And we don't like the answer. And we think we need to ask somebody else. I came across another version of that story that I like also. The man falls off the cliffs. He's hanging on the edge of the cliff, and he's hanging there and praying, and then eventually he's hanging there all night long, just barely holding on. And the sun comes up, and he finally looks down and notices he's about a foot off the ground. Sometimes we find ourselves in circumstances and situations in life where we want an answer, and we pray. And at the same time, we're busy trying to... There's an answer. There we go. God calling. There we go. We're trying to actually fix the problem, but we're trying to fix the problem on the same level as the problem. We talked a little bit about this last week. There's a saying, there's an understanding that you cannot fix a problem with the same mind that created the problem in the first place. And yet that's one of the things that we habitually try to do. We're busy squirrel caging, as I say, trying to find all the answers, trying to find the way. And we oftentimes feel helpless because we're trying to figure all of this stuff out, but we're trying to figure it out with a limited awareness. We're trying to figure it out with a particular mindset that really is the mindset that's created the problem in the first place. I was meditating on my lesson for this week, and I got this little insight. How many of you know the difference between a challenge and a problem? Don't know the difference, huh? Yeah. I didn't know the difference either, but in my meditation, my little inner voice kind of gives me these little insights. And what occurs to me, and this is, when you have a challenge, that means that you actually have some direction, or you know where you're headed. And you actually know some steps to take, but they're difficult. And they're difficult to do, perhaps, or they're difficult to perhaps understand. But there's a part of you that knows some action to take. But when you have a problem, you don't have a clue. You don't know. And one of the things I tell a lot of my clients, a lot of times when I'm doing the EFT work, is that we're working oftentimes when we have problems with experiences that are being created on a subconscious level. In fact, I would suggest to you that every problem you have ultimately has been created on a subconscious level. How many of you consciously try to create problems for yourself? Yeah, I think I'll go create a problem today. We don't do that, do we? And yet, how many of you have problems? Things that are going on that are hurtful, painful, difficult, challenging, uncomfortable, upsetting, frustrating, but you don't really know how to change it. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm going to suggest all of us got that on some level. And part of that is because there's a process that's going on inside of us that's a creative process that is always at work and is always creating. But it's not creating up here in our intellect with our conscious mind. It's creating on a deeper level, and it's creating out of the unconscious part of our nature. And this is not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but as I tell my clients, when you're dealing with the unconscious, you don't know what you don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I think I know, but I don't know. Interestingly enough, even when I think I know, I don't know. Does that make sense? And so part of our spiritual unfoldment is to begin to recognize that there's a level of awareness, there's a level of work that we are to do on our journey that allows us to move into a different level of awareness and consciousness. And it's one that we oftentimes are not very comfortable with. And it has to do with the idea that I don't have any control over this. It's an admission and an acknowledgement of personal powerlessness. I personally don't know how to change this. I, of the personality, the personal self of me, or some people refer to that as the ego consciousness, doesn't know how to change it, doesn't know how to fix it. And what we have a tendency to do is to kind of play with that idea a little bit. And then something comes along and we'll say, okay, God, I got this. And then we go back into the same patterns of doing the same things over and over again. In our work in the Quest, they gave an example, which I thought was pretty interesting, of driving along one day, and they had the windows partially down, and a bee flew into the car. And they were at the stoplight, and they were trying their best to try and get this bee out of the car, and they didn't want to hurt the bee. They wanted to make sure the bee was all right, because they bees are important in our world. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. They are. Bees are very important. They're an important part of our survival, to be honest. And so they were trying to take care of this bee, and they were trying their best to try and catch the bee, and the bee just kept flying up against the windshield. They rolled all the windows down trying to shoo the bee out, and the bee just kept going up against the windshield, thinking that was the way out. Just kept flying up against the windshield. And finally they had to go, and they drove home with the windows open, hoping that the bee would find some way to go out. And they parked the car over next to a bougainvillea bush, thinking that, okay, well, the flowers will draw the bee out. And they waited. They went ahead and went inside the house, and the next day they came out and they found the bee had died there against the windshield. Because the bee was convinced that that was the way out, and only saw that one way. How many times do we find ourselves in difficult problem situations and thinking there's only one way to go? That I have the answer, and what I believe is the answer is the only answer. Or is the answer, perhaps. And because I know it, and this is how I think it's supposed to be, that's got to be the truth, right? See, I got to laugh out of that one for sure. If I know how it's supposed to be, it's got, And, the other piece of that, which is really interesting, is that we get caught up in, we get trapped in, is a belief system that says, if I don't know the answer, it can't be done. That's just as much a stuck place as anything else. If you believe that you have to have the answer in order for something to happen, you've limited yourself to only your intellect and your ability to contemplate all of the knowledge and the facts of the universe. And we're good at that, aren't we? We're good at really knowing all the answers. Not. But there's a part of our mind that thinks that we have to have the answer in order for something to be possible. And this is one of the number one things that keeps us stuck right where we are. If you believe that you have to have the knowing, if you have to know how something is going to happen before it happens, then you are making yourself the ruler of the universe. Right? And I'm going to suggest to you that the opposite is true. In many ways, the most powerful gift that you and I have is to recognize that we don't necessarily have all the answers, or even the answer, and to be open to a greater awareness of a possibility that's beyond our own ability to understand or to know. That's what personal powerlessness is. The amazing thing about personal powerlessness is that it's extremely powerful. Because there's a power behind that makes things so possible in ways that you and I can't comprehend or understand. Now, that's not to say that we don't have a part to play. We do. We have a part to play in it. And our part really is to acknowledge that of our limited self, we don't have what it takes in order to move past our current situation or circumstance where we feel stuck, where we feel there's a problem. It's acknowledging that we don't know what we don't know. And so being willing to ask for assistance, being willing to ask for help. Help is always available. There's a universe that's always ready and willing to pour out amazing gifts and blessings in our lives. And is doing it based upon our ability and our willingness to receive and to accept it. And interestingly enough, one of the things that blocks our ability to receive and accept is this idea, this understanding that we already got it. Now, interestingly enough, there's kind of a balance that we have to, we want to find. When we're working with these principles, these spiritual principles and the creative principles of life, we are participating in helping to bring about whatever we want to experience more of in our life, but we don't do that on a conscious level. We do that by helping to condition and train our unconscious way of thinking. And we do that by holding a particular way of thinking as opposed to particular thoughts. Does that make sense? Well, let me say more about that. The universe is creating through us based upon what's the best way to describe this? It creates through us not necessarily based upon specific thoughts that we're holding, but it's based upon the quality and the character of the thoughts that we tend to hold in our awareness. And the place that we hold them is not necessarily just in our conscious mind, but in our unconscious mind, or subconscious mind, you might say. And so we condition our subconscious mind by practicing and by using the conscious mind to hold a particular type of thought. A thought that is of an energy and a consciousness that is one that really is focused on the possibilities, the greater possibilities, and is willing to let go of all of the little steps that we do, the maneuvers that we have, and the mechanisms that we have created and invented that seem to take us in a particular direction, but actually help us go around and around in what we call a squirrel cage. And so part of the work is to recognize that we have to kind of let go of the mental mechanisms in order to allow something greater to unfold and work through us. I was reading some work on this week, a prosperity work, and was reminded from Catherine Ponder. Catherine Ponder says there's three things that happen in the manifestation process when we are trying to bring more good into our experiences. One, we do the inner work. We do the inner work, and the inner work has to do with changing the level and the quality and the characteristics of our subconscious energy and thinking and milieu of beliefs and ideas and understandings. And we do that by practicing consciously thinking in certain ways, but it's not the conscious thoughts that are doing it. It's not the conscious thoughts that are creating it. The conscious thoughts are really programming us and programming the subconscious mind so that it emanates a particular energy and vibration or a level of consciousness so that we are attracting to us from that place. Does that make sense? Now, we have a tendency to think that, well, wait a minute, I do all these affirmations, I've had people come to me and say, hey, I've tried doing all these affirmations. I did at least 10 affirmations and nothing happened. Right? You know what I'm talking about? So one of the things that Catherine says is that we do our inner work to change and to condition ourselves first so that we are emanating in consciousness that which we want to experience more of out in the world. But then there's a part of us that basically we reach a place where nothing happens. That's the second phase of manifestation. You realize that? Second phase of manifestation is nothing happens. And that's the point where most of us get frustrated and think, well, I got to figure this out and make something happen. Right? And we so running around all over the place trying to make something happen that we want to have happen. I see some heads nodding. I mean, we all have done it. I've done it, certainly. Trying to make it happen. And interestingly enough, when we get in that place where nothing's happening and we're trying to make something happening, we are the very thing that's getting in the way of something happening. Because we have a consciousness that says nothing's happening. And if you have a consciousness that says nothing's happening, you are in this beautiful creative process that's creating more nothing happening. You getting it? And so we play these games, these mind games of, oh, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. And the universe says, yes, you're right, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. How about some more nothing's happening? And it's not till we get to the place where we can let go and surrender that part of our mind that tries to make something happen, that the universe can work through us. And when we let that go, I love this phrase. I learned this from one of my ministerial students when I was in ministerial school. And I don't remember where exactly she got it, but she did this wonderful talk in one of our classes. And she said, and she was quoting someone, and I didn't catch who she quoted, so I'll have to go find more information about it. But I let go, and I let God be God in me. Will you say that with me? I let go, and I let God be God in me. So what does that say to you? What does that mean for you? What does it mean? Well, when I hear that, what it means to me is I let go of all of this churning and all this thinking that I've got to figure it all out. And I let the power of the universe rule what goes on in my thinking, in my feeling, in my emotions, in my very nature. And I let that part of me that really has a deeper, richer, fuller understanding and awareness give me insight and clues and ahas, or nothing at all, and I just be. And interestingly enough, when I do that, there's a peace that happens. Charles Fillmore said that one of the first fruits of prayer is a sense of peace. It's a sense of peace and an understanding that all is in order. All things are working. There's something greater at work, and it's me letting go of thinking that I've got to make something happen. And if I can do that, it's amazing. It's amazing the things that occur that are beyond my ability to make happen. Does that make sense? Been there, done that. Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the processes that I love that is in Unity, and it's actually was created by Jack Boland. How many are familiar with Jack Boland? Jack Boland was an amazing spiritual teacher who was the minister at Unity in Detroit. And Jack was a powerful teacher who was not only a unity minister, but was very powerful and very active in the recovery movement. And in the recovery movement, there's 12 steps, but Jack created a kind of condensed version of the 12 steps that is called a mastermind process. And in that one, there's 6 steps. But one of the most powerful parts of the mastermind process, and this is a prayer process that we actually do on Wednesday nights. If you'd like to learn and experience more of that, come and join Bill. Bill is a master at doing the mastermind, and he's a great mastermind leader and facilitator. And so there's steps that you take, they're conscious steps that you take to help move you into a place where you can be more open and receptive to knowing and experiencing the presence of the divine and letting that presence and power work through you. It's letting God be God in you. I'm going to quickly kind of go through those steps. And the first step is surrendering. And we say, I admit that the personal self of me is powerless to solve my problems, powerless to improve my life, and I need help. And it's acknowledgement that on a consciousness, on a personality level, we don't have a clue, we don't have the answers. And it's allowing that ego consciousness to kind of rest and take a breather and step aside so that we can allow something greater and higher at work, right? And then the second step is an awareness of a belief. We affirm, I believe. I come to believe that there is a power greater than myself, the mastermind, that can change my life. So there is an acknowledgement that I don't have the answers, but there is an answer, and there is a way. And I'm open, and I'm willing, and I believe that there's something that can happen in my life and can happen through me. The fourth one is to make a decision. I decide to be changed. I decide to be changed. Notice, it's not saying, I decide that I'm going to change them. I decide that I'm going to change that circumstance. I decide that I'm going to change this physical body. I decide that I'm going to change my finances. Now, you can set an intention of what you want to have and want to experience, and we'll get to that part. But the first thing is to recognize the ego consciousness, the personality consciousness doesn't have the answers. The humanness of us doesn't have the answers. Now, the humanness of us is not something that I am not saying that we get into the whole, I don't know how to say it, but we don't get into the whole thing of feeling worthless. There is no worthlessness in you. It doesn't exist. You do not have in any part of your nature or being worthlessness. It doesn't exist in you. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what they tell you. I don't care how many times they tell you that you're a worthless sinner. It is a lie. Because you are created in the image and after the likeness of the divine. And that's the truth of who you are. And part of this work is opening up to that greater knowing of who and what you are. So don't let anyone tell you that you have to admit that somehow that you are worthless, because I can tell you they're lying to you. It's not the truth. And when someone says that to you, you can acknowledge, if you want to do it quietly, that's fine. You are a child of God, and therefore you are not worthless to them. And you see the light within them. And you hold them in a light that is more than what they may see for themselves. And there's a great power in holding that kind of light for someone who doesn't see it in themselves. I think it's part of our work, actually. The next step in the process is to forgive. Forgive ourselves for mistakes that we have made and shortcomings, and to forgive other persons who may have harmed us in some way. We've got to be willing to let go of the wounds, the feelings of of frustration, of feelings of hurt, the feelings of us and them, the blame, because that's the only thing that does is just keeps us stuck in the problem. It keeps us from being able to hold a consciousness that's beyond that problem. And then we ask. We set an intention. We set an intention for what it is we want to experience more of. You set an intention for the possibilities in your life. You set an intention for a greater good. And you ask. You ask, believing you have received is really what Jesus said. You don't ask in a begging way. You don't ask of, oh, please, 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 God. You ask with a knowing and an assurance that you're asking is the very catalyst that's allowing the universe to pour its divine nature in and through you so that you have the insights, the awareness, the energy, the consciousness to make whatever steps are necessary and needed to move you in the direction of what it is that your heart is desiring. And when we do that, the universe will pour through you in ways that you just hadn't imagined possible. And you get experiences and answers out of the blue. I love that term, out of the blue. Out of the blue. Things happen. And you don't know how they're going to happen. But if you're open and willing and allowing, things happen. And so you give thanks. You give thanks as though it is already so. You give thanks as though whatever you have asked for and desired and intended is so, or as we always say, this or something even better. Because remember, you don't have all the answers. You have a desire, you have an awareness, you have an intention, you set that intention, you ask for what you desire. And as you set that intention, you let go of thinking it has to be the way you have outlined it. Outlining actually is trying to make sure that it fits within a particular picture of what you've decided is your good. You set an intention, but you got large borders and boundaries of how that can be unfolded and how that can be benefited and how you can experience the good. And you don't let yourself get caught in the thinking that it has to be this way. It has to fit in this little cube. Make sense? And then the last part of the last step is a covenant. And it is an understanding that the universe, God, the divine, is supplying you with an abundance of all things that are necessary to live a happy and successful life. And you dedicate yourself to being in service to the divine in some way in your life. And you listen to what that service is. You listen to how you are being guided to have an impact, to be assisting in some way, to be a light to someone, to be a light in some part of your life, to share whatever gifts you may have and what ways that you are being fed and guided to do. And when you do that, you are part of that divine flow, and the universe allows you to receive and experience even more blessings. But a big part of that is recognizing that you're not doing it. That there's something higher at work in and through you that does the work. So that's our lesson for this week. And if you would like to have these steps, I'll be happy to get me your information. I'll be happy to email it to you or send it to you, or we'll actually print some of these off. It's a powerful work. Come and join Bill on Wednesday night for the mastermind process. When two or more gather together doing this process together, it's an amazing, amazing thing that happens. And things really begin to click and to shift. And so let's move into our meditation time.
Grander earth has quaked before, moved by the sound of Spirit's voice. Seas that are shaken and stirred, can be calmed and broken for my regard. And through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me. Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. And through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well. It is well. So let it go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. Let go, my soul, and trust, Spirit. The waves and wind still know His name. And it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well.
Breathing into the heart space. And breathe in and breathe out. And with each breath, beautiful air and oxygen is moving into every cell of your being. And you have no control over that. It just happens. And so just let go. Trust. You can decide to breathe in and breathe out, but you can't decide the flow of your blood. You can't decide where it's going to go or not go. And so you just allow. And if there's some place where you feel like you want or need more to flow, you ask. You ask for spirit, life to flow into those areas and enrich and renew and to revitalize. And you receive. You accept. And so gently say to yourself, I am now receiving. I am receiving now the beauty, the blessings, the life, the power, the energy, the light of Spirit. I I'm receiving all of the amazing blessings the universe is trying to pour in and through me. I am allowing myself to experience and receive even greater good. If there are problems in my life, I acknowledge I don't have the answer, but I know there is one. And I'm open to it, and I'm trusting, and I'm giving thanks that it is already unfolding and manifesting in just the right and perfect way for me and for all of those concerned. And so I let go, and I let God work through me. Be God in me, in my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my actions. And I give thanks. Thank you, God, that all is in divine order and all is well. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Take now a nice deep breath. Breathe into the heart space. Take another nice deep breath. Let yourself be filled with that assurance, that peace, that knowing that all is well. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Be present here and now. And so it is. Thank you, God. We at Unity in the Heart of Austin are committed to inspiring people to awaken to their unique divine nature through spiritual teachings, through heart-to-heart connections, through prayer, and through sacred service. And we provide tools, spiritual tools, that allow you to live your best possible life. I'm Reverend Tony Roebuck, minister at Unity in the Heart of Austin, and I truly hope that you are inspired by and that you are transformed by, you enjoy this week's spiritual message. And if you would like to leave a donation, a tithe, to help the work of this ministry in supporting you and others like you, then we are truly grateful for your generosity and for helping to make the world a better place. Because we know that life is meant to be good.